Hey everyone, what's up? I've been playing a ton of Path of Exile 2 over the last 3 weeks or so, with approximately 200 hours in the game, and I've been loving my time so far. However, there are some issues I would like to see addressed over the coming months of early access before full game release, so here are 10 improvements I would like to see for POE 2. I plan on making several more videos looking at all aspects of Path of Exile 2, so please subscribe if you want to see more of these in the future. Number 1. Add a map tab. Admittedly, this one was quite jarring when I first entered the endgame on my first character, as they had repeated several times all microtransactions including stash tabs and cosmetics would transfer over from POE 1, and per the video from Jonathan posted on the official Path of Exile Twitter page, was one of the primary reasons why the game was delayed from November 15th to December 6th. While some stash tabs transferred like currency and delirium, the second most important tab, in my opinion, is missing, resulting in me having to utilize one of my quad tabs to store maps and tablets in a very unorganized way. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but I would like a tab for waystones and tablets sooner than later. Just something similar to the gym tab that has an affinity that I can control click found waystones into, sorts and groups by tier, and also has sections to group tablets by type. Also, side note, where is the expedition locker? Number 2. Increased player agency in endgame. The number one thing to me that made POE 1's endgame nearly flawless was the vast amount of player agency. With players having the ability to run the maps they want to run, add or remove content they want to do or do not want to do via the Atlas tree, and could add as little or as much juice in their maps as they want, with multiple ways to do so. So, what are some improvements that could be made here? First, the ability to run or skip maps that you currently want to. Currently, the Atlas has the maps already designated on each node, with no option to change it. You either have to complete it or go around it. What I think would be cool is having a drop down on each map node to select from a list of maps that would fit the biome of that area. Sure, it wouldn't make sense to run an ice level map in the desert biome on the Atlas, so it would have to be limited in some capacity, but this would give players the ability to skip Augury and Mire. Second, I think merging the league mechanic trees into the main tree to have one total tree like POE 1 and then giving more passive Atlas points would be a vast improvement. Currently, the specific league trees like Delirium, Expedition, and Ritual are gate-kept behind content that is difficult or expensive to do, with no ways to really customize your experience with these mechanics outside of said content. In POE 1, if I wanted to spec my entire Atlas tree into Expedition and take every single Expedition node, I could, and I would have a juiced Expedition in every single map. The best part, I never had to run a single logbook to do so. Also, the tower system is too RNG based on which maps get which content, and the map itself isn't fun to run or engage with. Third, I think adding scarabs to the game like POE 1 would be a fantastic addition and would honestly help with a lot of the player agency issues I'm encountering, especially if they allow you to customize which league mechanics appear in your maps and how juiced they are. I do think these will be added eventually, and the game already appears able to accommodate them with the extra slots in the map device. Finally, one final thing to mention is I think some additional quality of life for navigating the Atlas is needed. Since the Atlas is infinitely expanding, navigating it becomes very burdensome as you complete a lot of maps. A couple things that I think would help is the ability to zoom out further, and also adding a search or filter based on things such as map nodes containing specific league mechanics, specific maps, or nodes currently available to run. Number 3. Reduce the size of zones. Currently, almost all zones in the campaign and maps in the endgame are massively oversized and need to be decreased by, I would say, approximately 1/3 of their current size. The current size of zones makes the campaign take a comically long time to complete, especially when trying to do all of the side content that provides permanent buffs. Apex of Filth had me questioning my entire life. This issue persists in the endgame too and makes maps annoying to run because they don't have any checkpoints and the map completion objective requires you to kill every rare mob. Godspeed if you missed one rare mob at the start. On top of reducing the size of zones and maps, there are a couple of other things that I think would add some quality of life to the endgame maps. Number 1 is to just add checkpoints to maps that can easily be teleported to and from, like exist in the campaign. One important detail is the checkpoint teleport map should have the remaining elite icons on it too, like the mini-map does, so you can see where the nearest checkpoint is to the remaining rare mobs. Also, once you've discovered a league mechanic in a map, keep that mechanic's icon permanently on the minimap and checkpoint map. Sometimes I want to save all the rituals for the end, after map completion, in case I die and brick my map, so it'd be great to know exactly where they all are since I've already found them previously. Number 4. Reduce attribute requirements on gems. Another frustration I continue to encounter in PoE 2 is accommodating new gear pieces you find, craft, or trade for, because you brick some of your skills because of the high attribute requirements to use them. Oftentimes when finding a gear upgrade, I have to spend several minutes adjusting gear in the passive tree to accommodate stat requirements. And honestly, this makes me feel the exact same way I felt about gem sockets in PoE 1, where I would continue using an inferior item because it had the correct colors and links. Now I use an inferior item because it has the correct attributes on it. Gems already having levels to prevent low-level characters from using high-level gems, so I'm not sure what their intention is with this, and I hope it's just a matter of balance with gear and the passive skill tree, but feels pretty punishing in its current state. Also, between attributes and resistances on gear, it feels really hard to fit multiple unique items into a build unless you have a lot of currency and are playing Trade League, limiting some build diversity. Number 5. Make the 3rd and 4th Ascendancy points more attainable. Arguably my least favorite thing in the entire game is how you gain Ascendancy points, with the 3rd and 4th set of points being the most annoying and egregious. More specifically, the 4th Ascendancy feels like it is intended for the most elite players in the game, and even worse, only intended for specific classes and builds. Most of the people I know are only getting the 4th Ascendancy via a carry, which just isn't fun. Doing the labyrinths in PoE 1 was my least favorite activity in the game, but they were pretty easy and the Ascendancy offers tremendous power upgrades, so it was a slight annoyance but worth doing. Now I've just been rocking with 3 sets of Ascendancy points in the end game, with no desire to even attempt the 4th. While I'm certainly not opposed to removing both mechanics from the game entirely or making them optional like they are in PoE 1, I doubt they are going to, so here are a few improvements that could make them more attainable and less annoying. First, make it so you only have to do one floor in the Trial Sanctum based on which level difficulty the token is, as in for the 3rd Ascendancy floor 3 and the 4th Ascendancy floor 4. The most infuriating part to me is that I have to complete the previous floors I've already completed, which makes the damn thing take a lot longer than it needs to be. Dying on the 4th floor after already being in the Sanctum for 30 plus minutes makes me want to quit the game. As for the Ultimatum Trial, I think they should at least make the 3rd Ascendancy the 7 trial token. I honestly don't even know why this 7 trial token exists, as the requirement jumps from 4 trials to 10 trials for the 3rd Ascendancy points. Also, having the Trial Master in a hidden room with the additional requirements for the 4th Ascendancy is silly. Just make him the boss for the 10th trial. Number 6. Add auto buyout to trading. Trading in PoE 2 has been pretty abysmal, with its current state being full of bad actors, complete morons, and bots, all of which can be pretty easily resolved by adding an auto buyout system with gold that has already been discussed. Jonathan has mentioned this in a previous interview, and it already exists for the currency exchange, but is desperately needed for gear trading through the website. Currently, trading in PoE 2 is actually a worse experience than PoE 1. Number 7. Add more deterministic crafting. Another common complaint I see is a lot of the RNG-based Gamba crafting that exists in current state of PoE 2. You essentially get one try at crafting an item out of a good base, and if you don't have a Gauntlet of Luck, the item is bricked and ready to be salvaged or disenchanted. Sure, there are some mechanisms like Omens to have a little more deterministic crafting, but the good ones like the Dextral Erasure to ensure a Chaos Orb only hits a suffix is currently trading at the exchange for 11 Divine Orbs, so it's not super attainable for most players. If they are dead set on not having a crafting bench or other forms of deterministic crafting, one thing that would improve the system a lot is simply adding scouring orbs or something similar to the game. This way, if you have a great base that you want to make a good item out of, you can continue slamming it until you get some affixes you want. This would certainly encourage more players to use some of their currency on gear, whereas now it feels like a much better use of exalts to stack them and trade for gear that already has the affixes you're looking for. Currently, I rarely engage with crafting at all outside of adding quality, socketing, and corrupting. Another thing I've noticed is that it feels quite difficult to get resistances in the campaign, and even with my alts that already have currency, I still felt like I was never res capped the entire playthrough. It is certainly easier to get res capped outside of Chaos in the end game, but I think maybe a new tier of rune could be introduced later in the campaign, such as Cruel Difficulty, or later to be Acts 4, 5, and 6, with higher resistance values, such as plus 25. I think this could go a long way in addressing some resistance issues, as long as they are accessible. Number 8. Nerf damage of white mods and raise boss difficulty. Currently, in PoE 2, the difficulty balance seems to be off, with white mobs causing more player deaths than bosses, which seems backwards to me. Maybe this is their intention, and if so, so be it. With that said, I would personally love for this to be flipped, with white mobs having their damage nerfed, and then bosses having their HP and damage increased. I see videos almost on a daily basis of streamers one-shotting pinnacle bosses, which completely trivializes the fights, as none of the boss mechanics have to be engaged with. I know most of the broken builds that currently exist will be nerfed into the ground as early access continues, but even just normal good builds shred bosses. On my monk, I was deleting all campaign and map bosses without really having to engage with anything, which is a much different experience than I had on my mercenary with a scuffed passive tree. Using my Quinn build mercenary with Z DPS, I had to time all the dodges correctly, avoid ground AoEs, pick my spots to do damage, and as a Souls game enjoyer, I truly felt like I was fighting a Souls boss. I think the balance is clearly off when you have to play a scuffed build to enjoy the boss fights, while your super strong in-game character is getting ganked by white mobs in maps, or getting one-shot by a death effect, which brings me to my next point. Number 9. Remove on-death effects. I don't understand why all ARPGs are obsessed with having on-death effects, but they all do it. Sure, maybe there are a few monsters that have them and you can be aware of them, such as the explodey fat boys in PoE 2, or the dolls in Diablo 2. This can make those monsters scary and wake you up from your mindless grind session when you encounter one, but shouldn't exist outside of that. Why am I being punished for winning the fight? This would be like Aaron Burr winning the duel against Alexander Hamilton, and then immediately being shanked from behind by one of Hamilton's people. This is extra painful with the endgame being more punishing than PoE 1, with only allowing one death per map, losing all content within the map if you die, and also losing experience. Please get rid of on-death effects. Number 10. Adjust item rarity gear. This has been a very controversial topic recently and was something that was also controversial in PoE 1. My personal opinion, I'm fine with it existing and being stackable for individual use, but some of the cheesy group play magic find strategies aren't good for the game. They inflate the economy and devalue the time of people who want to play solo, which is a pretty large percent of the player base. I know people that will avoid Trade League entirely because of this problem and stick to SSF. While there are multiple strategies being used, a common one that existed in PoE 1 and continues to exist in PoE 2 is to have a player stack item rarity gear, something like 400%, and use Culling Strike. This would allow a second player as a damage dealer to do most of the heavy lifting while the Magic Find character gets the final kills, therefore applying their item rarity percentage to the drop tables. Because of this, I think implementing a system where whichever player does the most damage to a slain monster has their item rarity percentage applied to the loot, which would prevent a lot of the final hit cheesing that currently exists. I know this is a very complex problem to solve for, and I have faith GGG will come up with something, but feels really bad currently. So, what do you think? Do you agree or disagree with any of my positions on some of these issues? Are there any pain points you're encountering that I didn't cover? Let me know in the comments below. And please like and subscribe if you want to see more Path of Exile 2 videos in the future.